What's up, guys? We are live. This is Thursday, 6th period, and I'm trying to get back into my routine of doing a video per week, a live video on Wednesday or Thursday. Next quarter, we're going to do double that. I'm going to do one on Monday or Tuesday, and then another on Wednesday or Thursday. And, you know, Friday's going to be the sort of office hours, e-learning, whatever it turns out to be. But then we'll have 2 per week. But for this quarter, I'm going to stick with our commitment. So anyway, last time I talked about, and you might have seen this video, I don't know how many people watched it. Last video we talked about how I'm trying to get the grades to be representative and varied. So we've been working on a story, and you'll have an assessment grade for a first draft, you'll have an assessment grade for a second draft, and then your big thing at the end of the quarter will be a third draft, which is, you know, each one has different focus. One is about the character and plot, another one's about format and spell check, another one's about editing. But I don't want it to be only that. I want to have variety. So I want to have one assessment based on the other big thing we've been doing this quarter, which is reading. We've been reading, I think, 4 or 5 stories. And when that counts for an assignment, it's just so small, it almost doesn't make a difference. So I wanted to make that count as an assessment too. I don't want this to be a new horrible torture thing where I'm giving you more quizzes, but I want this to be a way to spread out the grade where if you miss one thing, well, you make it up in another thing, or if you, you know, have a bad draft, well, you can bring it up with a good quiz or something like that. So what we're doing is taking the stories we already have, and I'm posting a quiz. I talked about this last time. I've talked about this for a few days. Posting a quiz with questions about the stories. And this is not a test of your memory, okay? It's not asking, you know, what color was the guy's hat. And even if it was, it's an open book test, so you would be able to do fine on that. It gives you links to all the stories, okay? The test, the sort of thing that I'm trying to get from you guys is the stuff we've been talking about all quarter, which we're talking about your character has a motivation, and right at the beginning they should have some kind of goal, and you can almost imagine it like if you're playing a video game and it pops up with your quest objective in the top left. Of course it can change, and of course when they get one thing they might realize there's another step, or when they get one thing they might realize it was actually bad, or whatever. But your character should have a goal right at the beginning in order to give us something to follow. It's like in my 5th period, Computer Science 2, we are doing a little thing where they program a little game, and so I was doing an example where you got a guy who can jump on platforms, and he can jump, and there's a little elevator, you ride up, but there's nothing to do. It doesn't give you an objective. So a user would click around for 10 seconds and have fun, but then they would say, well, what's the goal? What's the deal here? So the next thing we got to add to that game is like a flag, like in Mario, or a door that you get in. And then people would see that and they would go, oh, that's the target. And then they would know, well, I've got to do stuff that gets me to that target. And if something stops me, then it's bad. And if something helps me, then it's good. And all the stuff comes together where you have judgment and reason and, you know, a thrust to get you moving when there's a goal. But when there isn't, it's just wandering around. So you got to have that with your character. You got to have a problem. Otherwise, you just walk through the door and it's done. And then, of course, you have some kind of change. And in response to the problem, maybe your character changes or the world changes, or, you know, 2 characters fight or something like that. It's extremely open-ended, and I'm not giving you any kind of prescription of how every story has to be. It could end in peace or death or tragedy or comedy or any of the types of stories that have been written for the last 10,000 years, or probably hundreds of thousands of years. So that's the plan. The questions are going to say, what do they want? What do they try when it doesn't work? How do these two people come to a resolution? And then at the very end, it has a short answer or open response or whatever you end up calling it, where you want to write a little bit, and it's going to say write a paragraph or two. And for that, I gave you 4, but you only pick 1. So there's one thing about the witch, there's one thing about stockings, there's one thing about each story. And I don't want you to pick one that you don't care and just write some nonsense. I want you to pick the one that you think you might have something to say, and then give me a little bit. It doesn't have to be a full-page essay, but it might use this sort of, in English class, they ever tell you that thing about rage or race, where they say, like, restate the question, answer, and then cite examples, or if it's G, give examples, and then explain. So you might say, here's what they do, here's what it means, here's an example, wrap it up. That's the kind of thing we're talking about, although of course you don't have to like literally follow that formula. So after we do this, which by the way, you can do it on your own time. It's not like I'm going to be looking at my watch and saying you have X amount of minutes left the way you would in an iStep or something. You can do it now, you can do it later, you can do it tomorrow, but I'll grade them next week, and I'll grade lots of stuff next week. We're getting close to the end. We got a couple weeks left, and so we're going to be doing that second draft, the third draft, and wrapping it all together. Tomorrow, I may post something, but I'm mostly just looking at individual stuff, giving you feedback, giving you a grade, answering emails from students and parents, that kind of thing. And it should work out. So if you need help, let me know, and I'll post this in a few minutes, and we'll get going. Thanks.